Hey guys, welcome back to Ed's Garage. I'm sitting here in my Ioniq 6 and today I want to talk to you about Android Auto and how to use Android Auto for navigation. So specifically for navigation, and that's it. I might touch on a couple other little things, but this video is mainly about how to navigate with Android Auto using Google Maps, and we're also going to have a look at Waze maps as well, because of course with Android Auto you can use multiple different types of applications for your navigation needs. We're also going to talk about navigating for EV use, so how to get to fast charging stations, how to find fast charging stations, and the best way to sort of do road trips with electric cars. So first little segment is going to be how to use Google navigation. Second will be talking about Waze. And third, we're going to talk about how I would recommend using Android Auto to your advantage when you're navigating a long road trip and you've got an electric car. Now, of course, if you haven't seen this channel before, if you're new to this channel, I have done recently a very, very large road trip. As a matter of fact, I was 15,000 kilometers with this vehicle, the Hyundai Ioniq 6, while pulling a trailer. And this, of course, is full electric, so I needed to find charging stations, and Android Auto was invaluable for that. So the funny thing is I didn't actually use Android Auto necessarily or Google Maps to find the stations. I used Plugshare, and I'm going to get to that again later on anyway. But for now, let's talk about Google Maps. Now, Google Maps, as you've used it on your phone, if you're quite familiar with it, the good thing is that it works very, very similarly on Android Auto. As a matter of fact, if you start navigating on your phone before you've gotten into your car, when you get into your car and connect your phone up with Android Auto, it's going to actually continue on the navigation with Google Maps on the screen. So that's pretty cool. But this is just about how to use it, just built into the screen, how to use voice recognition with it, etc. All right, so let's get started. All right, so we're currently looking at Android Auto on my car screen now, and first thing I want to point out is when you have a larger screen, and I apologize for the shaky camera here, guys. I'm going to try to hold this as still as possible, but of course my phone, which I would normally use to videotape, is displaying this screen, so I can't actually use it. But anyway, so if you want to have your Google Maps full screen, first thing you'll notice is if I press the map button again on the left here, it does go full screen. Also on the top left-hand corner here, you can see we've got the search bar. That's where we can actually type something in if we want to. I'm going to blur this section out here because it's got my home address in. But here's where we can type in an address, pretty straightforward. And you don't even have to get it right. You can just kind of type in part of it and it'll find it for you. You'll also have a quick access to your home address right here. And sometimes you'll see your work address listed there below as well. But yeah, full screen right now, and you'll notice we've also got it on satellite view, which is pretty cool. So we can actually see, exactly what places look like. If I zoom in here a little bit, you can see the actual buildings. It makes it a little bit easier when you're navigating. But if I go to the top left here, I can actually turn off satellite view. So you'll see the little gear icon on the top left. I can turn on traffic, I can turn off traffic, I can turn on and off satellite view, and I've even got a 3D buildings option here, which is pretty cool. So if we look at the screen now, you can see that the buildings are actually represented in 3 dimensions, and that's pretty neat. Now, it's not a perfect system, and it does work better in large cities. So if I zoom in on Vancouver here, now, there we go. So now we can actually see those 3D buildings. Check that out. How cool is that? Personally, I really like the satellite view, so we're going to keep it on that. But you'll notice if I use 2 fingers and kind of swipe up or down, it does give me a different perspective. So that's kind of cool as well. All right, so now you can see we got recenter on the bottom. So because we've moved the map, we're no longer on the actual spot where we're currently located. So if I hit that button, it's going to take us all the way back to the spot that we currently are. So there we go, there's us. All right, so you'll notice on the left-hand side, we have a few different icons. So obviously we have the settings, and that's where we were able to change the traffic, satellite, and 3D buildings option. You can also change the guidance audio. So you'll notice right now it says unmuted. So if I tap that, it brings up different options. So I got mute, alerts only, and unmute. So unmute, basically everything that happens on the navigation system is going to come through the car stereo speakers. It's going to give me my turn-by-turn directions by voice. If there's police up ahead or whatever, it'll give me a notification of that. And everything that changes, so if it needs to reroute or whatnot, it'll tell all of us, or tell us all of that information. If I put it on alerts only, it'll just do kind of basic turn-by-turn direction stuff. And if I just have it completely muted, then obviously it's not going to do anything. So there's not going to be any audio indications of anything. This also has now the ability to adjust the guidance volume. To adjust the volume
of the voice guidance, use your car's volume controls. To adjust the volume of the voice guidance, use your car's
So what I'm doing
controls.
now is I'm just using the volume button here for the car, and that's allowing me to change the guidance volume while it's speaking. So that's kind of cool. So I'll do that again.
To adjust the volume of the voice guidance, use your car's volume control.
Just like that.
To adjust the volume of the voice guidance, use your car's volume control.
Pretty cool. All right, let's back out of here. And as far as the other things in here, you can see we've got route options and about. So if I go to route options, here's where we can enable and disable what things we want to avoid. So highways, tolls, ferries, and if you have an electric car, you can also prefer energy efficient routes. Now it's going to look at routes that avoid things like hills, higher speeds, and longer distances. So if you want to have shorter distances and whatnot. So I found this to be not great. I really wish there was an option to just have the shortest route as an option, but it doesn't do that. It just tries to give you the most efficient route, which doesn't work in some cases. So on the bottom left here, we've got the plus and minus buttons. That's just another way to zoom in and out. And then also we have a compass button here. If I tap that, it changes the orientation. So we have north up, an overview of everything, or perspective view, and then goes back to north up. Okay, so that's what that is. All right, so let's start by using the voice recognition. So this is the way that I highly recommend you navigate, and there's a couple things that you can say. So I've got the voice recognition button on my steering wheel here, which every car will have this now. Every car that has Android Auto will have the voice recognition button. So let's say we want to navigate to Walmart in Coquitlam. Navigate to Walmart in Coquitlam.
Navigating to Walmart Supercenter.
And there we go. So just as easily as that, it starts navigation. So really, really easy to figure out. Now here we have some options down at the bottom here. I can either close it, or let's bring that back up again. Navigate to Walmart in Coquitlam. All right, so we've got our route set up. Obviously you can cancel it right there. It's showing us that it is an eco route, so that's what this little leaf is for. If I zoom in there, you can see that little leaf on there. That's telling us our time to destination, our distance to destination, and what time we're gonna get to our destination. Now you'll notice if this is yellow, that means that there is some traffic on the way, but it's not too bad. If this was red, then the traffic would be bad, okay? Now Google is really good at trying to route you around traffic, so generally, your routes are gonna be fine, but if you live in high density areas, you may see that turn red a lot. So if the road is red, or if it's red here, yeah, there's some traffic. Right here is a reroute button, so if you tap that, it gives you a couple of options. So you can see I've got option A, option B. Option A is currently the most efficient route according to the system, which makes sense because it is 1 kilometer faster, but I can choose option B, and option B doesn't have any traffic problems. So option A has some traffic issues. It's 1 hour and 7 minutes. Option B, it's 1 kilometer further, but it's slightly faster. But we're going to put it on option A. So it's done a good job at determining which way is the best way for this vehicle, being an electric car, but it's only 1 kilometer difference. There is a little button up here. It's sort of back to the settings. Okay, so here's where you can then change your route options again. But we're going to keep it on option A, and we'll close this for now so that we can bring this back up. And now we have a search button here. Now, why would we have a search button if we're already navigating? Well, it's because you can search along your route. So check that out. So if there's a certain thing that you want to do along the way, let's say it's a charging station, well, you can actually find charging stations along the way. It kind of will give you options. Now, I wouldn't use this, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later, but let's assume that you're trying to find a restaurant on the way. So if we tap restaurant here, you can now choose some different restaurants that are along the route. And the further you scroll down, the further away from where you currently are, it will show you restaurants. The downside is that it doesn't really show you restaurants that are further towards your destination. As a matter of fact, I think if you go, yeah, I think you have to actually hit search this area now. I think it'll actually give you, yeah, there you go. So if you want to search for a restaurant that's like in the middle of your route, you can kind of swipe over and then search within your destination, and there we go. And the cool thing is it shows you, the ratings of the restaurants here as well. So if I tap number 3 here, it says, okay, we're going to add this as a stop. So we're going to hit this little button right here, and that adds that stop. Now, if you decided that you wanted to add that stop by voice, you can certainly do that. If you are currently navigating somewhere and you just say, find a restaurant along my route, it'll give you some options for a restaurant along your route. If you say, find a restaurant in a particular city, so let's say we want to find a restaurant in Mission, British Columbia, because we know that that's pretty much halfway in between where we are and where we're going, we can do that with voice recognition. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that stop by hitting the X and hit remove stop. Now I'm going to use voice recognition to add that restaurant back in, or at least a restaurant back in. Find a restaurant in Mission, BC.
Got it. There's the Blackberry Kitchen 35 minutes away. Want to navigate there?
No.
All right. How about Ember's Barbecue House 34 minutes away?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sure, Ember's Barbecue House 34 minutes away.
Now, you may have noticed it said that there was a 22-minute detour to go there, and that's because it really wasn't that close to our route. So it said 22-minute detour. So keep that in mind, because what it wanted to do was actually go along this other direction here and take this different road to get there. So now we're detouring through Mission, which is fine. It's still kind of in between us, and it's taking us there first, and that's going to take 36 minutes. Now here's the cool, so here's a really cool thing. So we know it's 36 minutes to get there. At this point, I can now call Ember's Barbecue Restaurant simply by pressing my voice recognition button. Call Ember's Barbecue in Mission.
Calling Ember's Barbecue House.
And there we go. So now it's placing the phone call. I'm going to hang up, of course. There we go. All right, so I've hung up now. Now, the reason that you might want to do that is because if you want to let them know that you're coming, maybe you need to set up a, what do you call that? A reservation. So we can now set a reservation. We know exactly how long it's going to take us to get there. And then when we're there, when we get back into the car, it's going to continue our route on to Coquitlam. So just like that. But I'm going to go ahead and exit this navigation because there's the other way that I want to show you how to do things here. So remember that you can just speak to Google naturally and it'll pretty much figure out what you're asking. Now, we just navigated to a business in Coquitlam, but let's say we want to navigate to a specific address. All we got to do is hold our voice recognition button, navigate to 33137 4th Avenue in Mission.
Navigating to
There we go.
33137 4th Avenue.
Okay, so that's how you can use voice recognition to navigate to a specific location. But let's say you don't want to use voice recognition, you just want to type it in. Well, it's pretty simple. You just go to search, put your finger in the search all destinations, and just type in the address. Really, really easy. And you'll also notice, of course, we have the most recent address that we went to. So here's our Walmart Supercenter Coquitlam and our Ember's Barbecue House. So yeah, various different addresses come up in there. On the left-hand side here, you now see we have categories. So there's our charging stations, gas stations, restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores, rest stops, hotels, and of course you can put favorites in here as well. So I'm going to demonstrate that real quick. So I live in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia. It's a beautiful place, and there's lots of cool places to go off-roading, and I really like off-roading. So what I do is every time I go off-roading, if I find a really cool destination, on my phone, what I do is I kind of hold the map and then I save that location. And you'll notice all these little hearts here are all those favorited locations. So let's say I now want to navigate to one of these locations. Now, granted, it's entirely possible that there's no road that goes there, but you notice I just tap that heart and boom, it comes up saying, okay, navigating to this dropped pin, and I can start the navigation to that location. So really, really simple to do. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is Waze Maps. So what is Waze? Well, Waze is a completely different application for navigating on your cell phone or with Android Auto. Waze Maps you might want to use if you want a little bit more information about traffic jams, construction, police, like radar blocks, radar cameras. They're a little bit more prevalent and a little bit easier to use with Waze. The cool thing with Waze is that you can actually report a traffic stop or an accident or whatever quite easily. With Google, it's not as easy. As a matter of fact, I have yet to figure out how to do it with Google. So if somebody knows, please comment below. But basically with Waze, you can then quickly, like if you see a police officer on the side of the road, you can actually report that so that other drivers in the area will get that notification. So let's open up Waze and have a look and see how it works. Now, I don't use Waze, so I don't know some of the ins and outs of it, but I've used it enough to be able to show anybody who hasn't used it before how it works and what you can do. So let's have a look at that next. All right, so the first thing we need to do is access Waze. So down on the bottom left, you can hit the little button there, brings up kind of all of your different apps. And we just need to find Waze on this screen. Of course, it's going to be at the bottom because it starts with the letter W. So let's open that up. Okay, so as you can see, Waze Maps looks a little different. The roads are a little bit wider, a little bit thicker. And we're currently looking at it in a top-down view. So let's start off with the settings. So we're going to hit the settings button on the top right-hand corner. You can see we can add an account. We can change sound settings. Let's do the sound settings. We can have sound on, off, and alerts only. So kind of like Google for that. We have, let's see here, logs, navigation, preferences. Here we go. We have avoid tolls, ferries, freeways, and unpaved roads. So that could be handy for anybody who's not wanting to drive on dirt roads. But if you're an off-roader, you might want to keep that on. So yeah, something to keep in mind there. We have avoid difficult intersections. So this one's kind of funny. So we're going to put that on never for us. But if you have like an intersection in France, for instance, where there's no lines on a gigantic roundabout, you might want to turn that on. We're going to go to vehicle type here, see what's in here. So we've got private, taxi, and motorcycle. And the reason there's those different options is because if you're a taxi driver or motorcycle driver, you can go places where the typical driver might not be able to go. So that's why those options exist there. So pretty cool little navigation settings. We're going to back out of there now. And I think that's pretty much it in here, yeah. So we're going to back out of there as well. We have a plus and minus button on the left or right-hand side here, which allows us to zoom in and out. And then we have this button right here, which allows us to update those people around us in the event of a traffic jam, a police officer, a crash, a hazard on the road, a problem with the map, bad weather, or some debug information. So that's kind of cool. So if we're driving down the road and we see a police officer, we can hit that button and warn other drivers to slow down, otherwise they might get caught speeding or something like that. Of course, you don't want to necessarily do that, but maybe you do. But anyway, so let's say we want to use Waze to navigate. So I'm going to hit the little search button up here, and I can go to categories. Categories is, again, like Google. Here's your restaurants, parking lots, coffee shops, drive-thrus, shopping, pharmacies, and they also have EV charging as well. Let's have a quick look at their EV charging menu. Okay, so again, sort of like Google, shows you different charging locations, but we're just going to quickly navigate by voice. We're going to hit this little button right here. Walmart in Coquitlam. All right, so you'll notice that it actually used the Google Voice Assistant, and it's now going to allow us to navigate there using Google Voice Assistant. It's figured it out.
U-turn. Then turn right.
All right, so this is not pulling data from the internet for the voice for the voice playback, which is nice. I can tell that that's a downloaded voice, not a internet voice. So it doesn't sound as natural. It sounds more computerized. One thing I found with Google recently is that if you're not connected to the internet, there's a lot of disadvantages to the mapping system. But Waze has always been a primarily internet access mapping software as well. So with both, you do kind of need a mobile connection for them to function correctly. While we're looking at the screen here, a couple things. You'll notice you got your speed down there in the bottom right. Similar to Google, they'll put the speed there as well. You've got your time to destination, your distance, all that stuff. There's a reroute button in the top right-hand corner here. Let's tap that. So it gives us a few different options. This is kind of nice. So instead of only 2 options, it's giving us 3. This one actually does have a shortest route, so 81.9 kilometers, taking us a different route there. So if we hit go, it's now going to adjust that. There we go.
Right.
All right, so pretty nice. So it actually has a shorter route option than Google gave us, so pretty cool. We have the volume button up here, or the mute button, again, same as in the settings, and we have the X there to cancel. So pretty straightforward. X that out, go to the search, and we can also type in addresses here as well. And we have our recent category there as well, or our recent locations as well. So very much the same sort of thing as Google, with the big exception that you can report different things in your area. So navigating with an electric vehicle on a long road trip can be a little bit daunting because you need to find charging stations. Now, there are a lot of people that suggest that you use an app called A Better Route Planner. Personally, I don't like using that software. And the reason for that is because if you use A Better Route Planner, you're planning your whole trip all in one shot. And I think you should plan each following station. And the reason for that is because if you plan your entire route, if it's a long drive, let's say you're going on a 1,000-kilometer, 1,000-mile road trip in one day, and you plan your whole route out. Well, who's to say that the charging station, you know, the third or fourth charging station that you need to go to that day, who's to say that that station is functional and free to use? There may be other cars parked there charging, there may be some problems with the charging station, etc. So that's why I don't recommend doing it that way. Now, having just finished a 15,000-kilometer road trip, I think I speak from experience when I say this, but I would recommend that you use Plugshare to find the map, or to find the station that you want to go to. Make sure that it's got a good rating, make sure that it's currently open and available to use and it isn't busy, and then navigate to that station. Once you've navigated that station, you're going to have time to figure out what your next stop is going to be. And don't try to find a station that's at the absolute extent of your vehicle's range. You got to remember here that when you navigate or when you drive with your EV to a station, if you get there with 5% battery left, you know, you're actually better off just charging to 80% anyway, because it's going to charge to 80% much faster than from 80 to 100% in most EVs anyway. Or it's going to take about as long to go from 10 to 80% as it would to go from 80 to 100%. So if you are charging, or if you're driving to a charging location and you know you're expected to get there with 30 or 40% battery life left, that's not really a big deal because that's right in the middle of, you know, the best possible charging speed that your car can do. So it's not really a big deal. Maybe you make a 1 or 2 more stops throughout your trip, but you'll probably get to your destination faster, because at low charges, at 5 to 20%, your battery's not going to charge as fast as it could, and subsequently at high charges, 80 to 100%, same thing. It's not going to charge very quick. So you're better off to try to just stick between that 20 to 80%. And you always want to have a bit of a buffer as well. So when you're looking for a charging station, if your vehicle has a range of 400 kilometers on average, for instance, or if it says that it's got 400 kilometers, don't necessarily expect to be able to go 400 kilometers. You're better off finding a station that's within about 300 kilometers, or maybe 250 to 300 kilometers. And the reason for that is because, again, you're going to get there, you're going to plug in, it's going to charge up pretty quickly, and be courteous to other drivers, other people that are waiting for the charging station. If the station is full, try to get out of there when you hit 80%, because remember, you'll get to your destination faster if you leave at 80% and just charge again somewhere else along the way than if you purposely wait till you're at 100%. Now, obviously, if there is no other charging stations between you and 400 kilometers away from you, it's about 300 miles or 250 miles, then sure, maybe charge it to 100%, but you got no choice, you got to charge up. And even if you don't let people know that, if you only do it every now and then, it's not a big deal, I guess. But But ultimately, yeah, I highly recommend be courteous to other EV owners, and you know, don't perpetuate the myth that EVs are difficult for road trips. They are a little bit more difficult, but they're not that difficult. On our road trip that we did, our 15,000-kilometer road trip, we pulled a trailer, which almost cut our range in half. So we had a range of about 250 kilometers with the trailer, 84 charge stops, and each station on average took us 24 minutes out of all those 84 charge stops. And there was only a handful of times where we got stuck behind somebody else or the station didn't work. For the by and large most of the trip, it was pretty easy. Anyway, let's get to how to use Plugshare to find a station, and then you know, where to go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Plugshare on my phone here. All right, so we're currently inside of the Plugshare application. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the screen with you now. And whoop, I exited out. Whoops. So you're going to notice that on the right-hand side, there's a little button that kind of looks like a reticle, like a gun reticle, a gun sight. If you tap that, it's going to zoom right in on your location. So there we are. We know where we're going, or we know where we are. But the first thing you're going to want to do in Plugshare is you're going to want to set some of the settings up so that you know which stations you're actually looking at. So you'll notice along the bottom here, there's all filters. I'm going to go ahead and tap that. And we have our kilowatt range, as well as our vehicle and plugs, more plugs, station count, etc., etc. So kilowatt range. Now, how fast can your vehicle charge? That's the important thing to ask if you don't already know. So older EVs charge at about 50 kilowatts. Newer EVs charge at up to 350 kilowatts, depending on the vehicle that you have. If you have a Lucid Air, for instance, you're going to want to find chargers that are in the higher range. If you have a Chevy Bolt, don't bother going to anything faster than 50 unless you have no other choice, in which case nowadays you pretty much have no other choice. But keep in mind that your car charges at 50 kilowatts max, well, 55-ish. So if you go to a station that has 150 kilowatts and a 350 kilowatts, try to use the 150 kilowatt stations. You know, there's no point in blocking the 350 station for those who can use it. But you'll notice anyway that I have it set between 42 and 350 kilowatts because I don't need to see slow stations. I've also got the CCS SAE standards selected. Obviously, if you have a Tesla, you're going to want to enable the Tesla superchargers. It has station count, so how many stations there are at that location. We're just going to put any, and we can even choose amenities. It says hide dealerships, and that's what I have turned on right now because generally dealerships don't like you just dropping in and charging. What I tend to do, what I did on my trip, was on 2 separate occasions, I actually contacted a dealership and asked them if it'd be okay to use their station. And honestly, they're both more than happy to let me use their stations. So, and I gave them a little bit of YouTube time as well. We have plugs, so you can choose which networks you want to use. Now, I do highly recommend if you're going on a long trip, you'll notice here there's lots of different networks. You know, get some of these apps, get them ready to go. Get your MasterCard or Visa tied into these applications so that when you get there, you don't have to figure that out. Just get your accounts set up. Anyway, let's have a look at the map here. So we're going to assume that we're going to go to let's go to Salmon Arm. Here we go. So here's Salmon Arm, and you'll notice if I zoom in on it, we have several stations. I'm going to go ahead and tap one to see how far it is away. Here it is, a Petro-Canada station. You'll notice it's got a 5.7 plug score, which is not very good because this is out of 10. So let's choose another one here. 9.3, here we go. So the mall at Piccadilly. This is not London, so this is Salmon Arm. I'm going to go ahead and just tap that box there. And we're going to see how far away this one is. It says it's 160 miles. So what is that in kilometers? I'm going to hit the directions icon and bring up maps. Okay, so it's an Electrify Canada station. It's 3 hours and 36 minutes away. And it's 361 kilometers. So that is stretching the range of this vehicle. This vehicle has a range of 434 kilometers on average, but it is winter right now. So I'm going to want to stop somewhere in between probably Merritt and Kamloops. I'm going to back up a little bit here, go back to Plugshare. I'm going to zoom out. And here's Merritt and Kamloops. Now the thing is, some of you might be looking at this and go, why wouldn't I just plan my whole route? Well, again, I don't know what these stations look like when I get there. I mean, sure, the rating's good right now, but is it going to be by the time I get there? I don't know. So I'm gonna look to make sure that I'm not stretching out the range too much, and I'm also going to make sure that the station that I decide to go to isn't that far, isn't a problematic station. So looks like Merritt's probably the best option here. So let's zoom into Merritt. Now, the last time I was in Merritt, none of these stations were doing all that hot. So this one has a 10 plug score, so that's good, but I know that that's a slow station. So let's look at this one right here, which I believe is the one at Canadian Tire. Yes, it is. So very highly rated station. There are lots of stations to choose from, and it should be right within the range. So you can see here we've got 150 kilowatt stations to 350 kilowatt stations. The most recent check-ins are all good, as you can see. So I'm not concerned about this station. When I get to it, I'm confident that it's going to work. So I am going to hit, oh, and I want to check the price here. So here's our cost. So payment may be required. It's 1 to 90 kilowatts is 27 cents per minute, and 1 to 350 kilowatts is 57 cents per minute. So if you use the 350 kilowatt station, it's going to cost 57 kilowatts, or 57 minutes per kilowatt. 57 cents per minute. Sorry, my goodness. Okay, so there is one big downside to the station in that they are charging by the minute, not by the kilowatt. And that's annoying because if you get there and the station's not very quick, you may end up paying, way more than you should be paying. So unfortunately, Electrify Canada does do that here on the West Coast. On the East Coast, though, they do charge by the kilowatt, so this is interesting. So on the 150 kilowatt stations, you will actually pay 57 minutes, now that I'm reading this correctly, 57 cents per minute. But yeah, we're going to go there anyway. Now, consider setting up an account with Electrify Canada and getting a Pass Plus. It's not very much. It's like $10 a month, and as you can see, you will save some money if you use it more than once, basically, in a month. So anyway, we're going to go to directions for the station, which is on the screen here. So I'm going to tap directions, and I'm going to bring up Google Maps. Now, you'll notice I can also use Waze Maps as well, but I'm going to choose Google Maps because I prefer to use Google Maps. I'm then going to hit directions and start. And of course, now that I've set the directions on my phone, it'll actually come up on Google or Android Auto. I'm still currently in Waze Maps, so I'm going to go ahead and exit Waze Maps and go to Google Maps. I'm just going to bring that up on the screen here, and boom. So it's already set to go to Merritt, which is 172 kilometers away. So that's well within the range of the vehicle. I'm not worried about it at all. And when I get there, it's going to charge up really, really fast because I'm not getting there with a dead battery. I'm not getting there with a full battery. So, even though I might have to stay there for 5-10 minutes, it's not a big deal. It's going to save time in the long run on this journey to get to my final destination in Salmon Arm. Now, once I get to that charging station, you'll notice, that I took my time figuring that all out. I did that very slowly for you. For me to find a charging station takes less than a minute. So when I get to my charging station that I'm going to in Merritt, I'm just going to sit there. Once I'm plugged in, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to figure out the next station. Because again, it takes a minute. It's not taking away from me at all because I have to stay there for 20 minutes anyway, tops. So it works out. So that's how I would highly recommend that you navigate with an electric vehicle for a long road trip. Get an overall picture from Plugshare to make sure that there are generally charging stations all along the way between you and where you're going. Make sure you're not going into a massive dead zone. When you're going on a long trip, that you've actually made sure that there are a fairly abundant amount of stations between you and where you're going. And for the most part, that is the case now. There's charging stations pretty much everywhere that people want to go these days. Check Plugshare. Go to your destination on Plugshare. Just make sure that there's stations roughly every 60 miles, 100 kilometers. And that way, regardless of the situation, you'll be able to, find a place to go. That's how I would do it. If you do want to use, if you're going somewhere that you're not sure of and you do want to use a better route planner to kind of plan your entire route from the get-go, great. but I would still plan each individual stop separately. Do a whole route plan, make sure that it's even possible, and if it's possible, then use Plugshare to actually plan every individual step along the way. It's not that hard. As a matter of fact, it's super easy, and the benefit of doing it that way is that you'll know if that station that you're going to is indeed functional, opened up and ready to use, and you'll be able to check on Plugshare which app you're going to need, because it says in the app exactly who runs that station. So make sure you have that app pre-installed on your phone, set up with an account, and your credit card is actually attached to it. And that's pretty much it. I hope this helped you guys out, guys. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, by all means, leave them in the comment section below. If you're new to EVs and you think you've got a better way to navigate to different stations, keep in mind, guys, I've been doing this since 2017, and I've put hundreds of thousands of kilometers on electric vehicles now, and I've done a lot of road trips, and this is what I recommend. If you believe that you have a better way and it works for you, that's great. Feel free to comment below, but keep the comments civil. If you think my way is bad or the wrong way, I don't want to hear it. That's fine. Keep your opinion to yourself. But if you think you have a better way, sure, add that to the comments. I'd love to hear it. But having driven an EV for a long time now and having gone on long road trips with it, I've found that this is the best way, because so far it has worked flawless. I've never run out of juice, not even once. I haven't even gone, wow, I've come close on purpose. There was a trip that I did, well, part of that 15,000K road trip, actually. I could have stopped sooner, and I didn't. I wanted to push the limits and see how far I could go, and I was prepared to live with the consequences. And I ended up making the charging station with about 3% battery left. So that was fun, but that was literally on purpose. And I even said as much in my video when I did this. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out, check out the Charging Across the Continent video series that I did. There's a playlist in my channel, so check that out. It's lots of fun. And again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and have a Merry Christmas. Take care.